I call to order this March 6, 2023 Henderson County Board of Public Education board meeting. Would all rise for the presentation of colors, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Hold. Ready, post. Ready, cut. Ready, pace. Present arms.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arms. Ready, pace. Ready, move. Forward, march. Forward, hold.
May be seated. That was the North Henderson High School Air Force JROTC under the leadership of Colonel Eric Runquist. All right. First up, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda. Don't rush.
I move we approve the agenda as written.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Recognitions. Ms. Garrett, you ready to take this over?
Yes, sir.
All right.
So this evening, let me go like I normally do.
All right.
So this evening, we have the West Henderson High School DECA Club with us here. Miss Garrett is their sponsor, and I'll ask her to come up and share a little bit about the successes that they have had as both a club, and we have 3 individual students who we want to honor who have earned their way to the International Career and Development Conference that will take place in April, correct? In Orlando, Florida. So Miss Garrett.
I'm glad I have this playbook to go for with just to read right off of this. Thank you all for having us this evening. We're very excited and I'm very proud of the students that we have here to recognize. I just want to say before we begin that this is our first year going to state competition in quite some time from what I know. And we took 14 students from West Henderson to state competition with 3,700 other students at this level. So the ones that we have here this evening accomplished something pretty great. They were state finalists, which means they came in top 10 in the state. So I want to call up, I'm going to let them come and be in the spotlight while I speak about them. So we have Naomi Cannon and Amory Delphin that placed 4th in hospitality and tourism team event, and Tatum Garrett who placed 6th in hotel and lodging. So come on up here, ladies. So this is my 21st year as a DECA advisor, and I know what a big deal this is for young people that have never competed at the district level, have never competed at the state level. So for them to make it to internationals this year, I'm very proud of them indeed. We also had 8 other students that received top role play medals at states this year, and I was very excited and I'm very proud to say that West Henderson High School was represented numerous times on stage at the state level. So these 3 will be traveling with me to Orlando, Florida in April to compete at DECA's International Career Development Conference. So the top 5 get to compete and have a spot at internationals. Tatum placed 6th in hotel and lodging, and so she had to get bumped up to compete. And we just found out this afternoon that she did actually get bumped up, so she gets to compete at internationals as well. So we're very excited about that. But thank you all very much. It's also Naomi's birthday today, so happy birthday to Naomi. And thank you all for having us this evening.
So we have certificates for these young ladies and certainly extend our congratulations. So Naomi Cannon. Miss Garrett, you can go get a picture with them. Anne-Marie Delphin. How do you say this name? Oh, Tatum Garrett. And for those who aren't familiar, Tatum Garrett is a little bit related to me. She's my daughter, so certainly proud of her and everybody else at West Henderson High School for doing so well this first year out of the box.
Absolutely. No, he did not define Miss Garrett. Just later.
Well, yes,
Well,
Miss.
we hired Miss Garrett, and
Yeah.
we really wanted you to be in
Yeah.
our school system. He
Yeah,
just
I
kind of
know-
came along for the
I know that
ride.
the Board of Education used me to get to my wife,
Absolutely.
to be an educator.
So thank you, Miss Garrett.
I do like to remind folks that with the Garrett family, you get one great educator. And certainly proud of the work that she has done in her career and bringing that to West Henderson High School, and certainly proud of these students. And we wish them the best in Orlando in April. And as you see, they have been married to the superintendent long enough that they are taking the opportunity to go elsewhere now for the rest of the meeting.
All right. Well, next up is our program highlight, kindergarten registration and readiness. Dr. Malu.
So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, this is the most excited I have been about a program highlight all year long. So this is pretty cool. We are in the midst of kindergarten registration season. Kindergarten registration opened February 1st online. And this picture I love. We're going to talk about registration and getting ready for kindergarten. The little girl in the little pink jacket came to one of our kindergarten readiness rallies last year. She is now a full-fledged kindergartner at Atkinson Elementary. And then the little boy on the left, we have already had one of our kindergarten readiness rallies, and he attended the one at Bruce Drysdale last Thursday. And that just happens to be one of our community partners taking great pictures. CFNC, which never too early to start putting money away for college. So they attended. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Where can you find out about kindergarten registration? Those little flyers up there are everywhere. We have sent them all over the community. They're on our website. They're everywhere, social media. This year, we also invested in these great posters at a few of our sites, and we've gotten good feedback about those. That one right there happens to be outside Johnson Farm. And then again, social media, everywhere we could think of. We've done newspaper ads, online newspaper, Facebook, Google ads. Trying to think where else. Everywhere you can think of, we are trying to reach kindergartners in our community. And so that includes trying to entice our high school principals to put it up on their signs, because we've got parents, people driving by all the time. We want to make sure that we've got all of our kindergartners that are going to be coming to kindergarten next year ready and willing to attend, and it must be working, because as of this morning, we had over 475 students registered for kindergarten for next school year. Not bad for a month of work. And on our website, this right here is exactly what our web page looks like. You just click on that little button. We do have the opportunity, if you don't have access for internet at home, you can go to a school. They will also set you up with a computer, and you can register in person online at your schools. So every year, we want to make sure we're getting kids ready for kindergarten, not just making sure we get them registered. So there's two pieces to this that are very important. And one of the populations that we work really hard to reach are through Simone Wartenberger's employees who help us create this support for registration. They do it at El Centro. And the whole thing, you can see that whole page is in Spanish. This event has already taken place. You'll see Smart Start in that top picture is helping register families. Very proud little boy with his brand new backpack, so there are opportunities for school supplies as well. And then I just want to highlight one of our social workers, Noelle Griffin down there. She is a bilingual social worker. And then there are also members of North Henderson's LEAD group who have helped to get out and help parents get registered. So you can register in Spanish online, but they will also help them complete the documents. And again, because it's kindergarten registration season, lots of parents start asking, how do I know that my child is ready for kindergarten? So we have been hosting kindergarten Q&A sessions. That means that we've actually had panels of principals, teachers, our elementary education director, Dr. Marcia Justice, and lots of kindergarten folks who are experts on how to make sure kids are ready, have been there for panels so parents can ask questions. I think they've done all 4 now, but we are also doing another that will be recorded so we can put it on our website and parents will be able to just access it to get those answers if they weren't able to attend one of those sessions. We also have, that up there is actually not a live video. It is a screenshot of the videos that are on our website. So we created a few years ago the I Can videos, and it's all about what we do really expect kids to be able to do. I can hook my seatbelt. I can pack my lunchbox. I can walk to class by myself. Basic readiness skills that will ensure that our kids are ready for kindergarten. And really, kindergarten readiness is about being a kid. If you're doing the job of being a kid, you're ready for kindergarten. So we have, a few years ago, some of you might remember that we used to do this big kindergarten readiness rally at the mall. And then we had a rather large event called the pandemic. We weren't able to get all these people together, but the best thing that came out of that is we started doing school-based rallies. They are amazing. And right there, you will see the advertisement for all 13 of them. Again, Bruce Drysdale has already had theirs. It was very well attended. Lots of parents, lots of opportunities for that school in particular to learn about the dual language program. Lots of parents in the hall trying out all the really cool things that their kids received in their readiness bags. So I'm going to take these, I'm going to pass them around so you can see what's in the bag. You have to give them back. These belong to Sugarloaf.
So why do you say that each of the individual schools is better than the big, huge one they have at the Blue Ridge Mall?
Because number one, it's not as overwhelming for children or their parents. It also allows us to be able to talk to parents about what readiness means. And the things that are going around in those bags are tools to actually help get kids ready. But again, it's about the work of being a child. And when they're in small classroom sessions, they're able to actually talk with parents about how to use those materials, and kids can show their parents and be shown how to use the materials that are in there. So it's just, it's something about making that school their own. So that's the other big piece, is they actually get to be in a school, not the mall. They actually get to be in a classroom environment, see the hall, see the cafeteria, see the bus, because that's the coolest part, let's be honest. And then just, you can see the pictures up there, lots of kids participating in actual opportunities to come in with their families and sit in classrooms, sit in a little tiny chair, see what it's like to be in a classroom that fits you. So it's been really awesome. And then in order to get those bags made, we have to lean very heavily on our community. So back when we did the rally at the mall, we had different folks that were in charge of putting that together. But when we went to these other small readiness rallies, Smart Start has taken the lead. So Smart Start, Partnership for Children in Henderson County, takes the lead on helping us schedule all of that. And they, along with Children and Family Resource Center, WNC Source, Advent Health, Henderson County Public Library, and tons of volunteers, actually gathered several weeks ago at Mills River Academy to put those boxes together, our bags together, including some of our own folks here in the county office went out and helped group them. You'll notice them. You might see some familiar faces in there. Pretty awesome people who spent their day not only putting the bags together, but also delivering them to schools. So schools already have their bags. And then to actually see what you're looking at right now is what's actually in those bags. So I'm going to give you one more thing.
I like Play-Doh. Can I keep the Play-Doh?
So these the little books the books that are coming around, you actually can keep those. And what these are, they were developed by the Office of Early Learning at North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. And this is one of the things that is in the bags, along with all of those other really, really cool things. So I'm going to talk to you for just a quick second about why those things are important. And it all has to do with this little booklet. This is one of the things that we're trying to let parents know. If you want some ideas about how to get your child ready, everything you need is right in here. So there are 5 areas of development. And the Play-Doh, for example, is in the section called Approaches to Play and Learning. How do you make something? How do you use your imagination? Health and physical learning, working on fine motor skills. Cognitive development, how do you put those things together? There are books that are in the bags. Emotional and social learning, how to identify the character's feelings. Language development, communication. How do you identify basic sight words? How do you identify letters? How do you figure out which words rhyme? The Letterland page that you may have seen in there, Letterland is our phonics program, helps you learn those sight words, helps you learn basic sounds, helps you begin to identify letters. Health and physical development, I love because our Letterland has action tricks to go with it. There are Unifix cubes in there. Cognitive development, how do you develop patterns? How do you count? Health and physical learning, again, fine motor skills, putting them together, taking them apart. Crayons. How do you actually hold a crayon? Brightman said one time, if you can hold a crayon, you can hold a pencil. He's not wrong. Cognitive development. How do you figure out which colors go with what? Which colors match the things that are outside? Which colors match the things that are inside? So all of these are important tools, but it's just the work of being a child. So I want you to be able to see what that really looks like. So I've invited a few friends for this evening. We have some of our Sugarloaf students, and they're actually going to come down this little walkway. I'll let you know in just a second. They're going to demonstrate, for example, health and physical development. Can y'all come down here for me?
Hey, guys.
You can run. You
How
can
are you?
skip, you can hop, however
We're not
you want
scary.
down here.
Yeah, we didn't need to.
So see, just walking. Can you skip? No. Can you hop? Yeah. Show me. Perfect. And I would like to introduce their fantastic teacher from Sugarloaf, Tiffany Dorn. She teaches kindergarten. She's probably extremely tired right now, but she showed up anyway. So that's the easy one. Do you remember when you were in school and they would say something like, I'm going to look at the text and I want you to figure out how the author wanted to imply that the character was angry or upset or happy? You had to know how to associate feelings with language. So can you give us a description of what that would look like?
Gabriella, how would you feel if you got some ice cream?
I would feel surprised.
Henley, how would you feel if you won a game?
I would feel excited.
Perfect. All they have to do is put their words to their feelings. That's all there is to it. Approaches to play and learning. So they have toys, not only knowing how to use a toy, but how to creatively do something else with it. And you can actually, if you want to move over to the edge there, can you do something really quickly for us and show us what that would look like? And again, I just want to point out too that they are working out of a STEM kit. STEM does not have to be anything that you plug in. Here, I'm going to bring this over to you.
A cube, and how are you making that?
I'm making it with, you make 4 sides.
And how many sides would a cube have?
6.
Henley, what are you making?
I'm making a train track.
And how are you making that?
I'm doing red, blue.
So I actually just want to point out that she already jumped ahead to the cognitive development one, which is all about like making patterns. So, or counting how many things that you have. And then, thank you ladies for that. The last one that we have, As you may or may not know, we use Letterland phonics program in our district. So they are going to demonstrate for you. Letterland is really important. Not only do kids start to learn letter names, but if you're going to read and write, you have to know letter sounds. And sometimes that gets skipped. So we love Letterland because it focuses on letter sounds. And so they're going to demonstrate for us, and this is where we'll need Mr. McMurray's help. Thank you so much, ladies. So they have demonstrated just some easy little things that parents can do at home if they are worried about their child not being ready. It truly is about doing the work of a child. It's just that simple. And so really the biggest thing I want to talk to you about now is just oral language. Make sure you're talking to your kids. Ask them questions. We can't stress that enough. And all of those things manage to hit all of those big ideas. So the more we do that, the more ready kids are when they come to us. And it sounds like it's really complicated, but if parents will just get them to us, we will take care of the rest. So, and I think that's all that I've got. Yay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I do just want to say one more thing. When putting those bags together and the readiness rally where every parent will get their bags, we have had between 9 and 20 community partners that also take part in those rallies. So parents will come, they will be able to get freebies, they get great opportunities to collect information and see what other resources are available. So we can do this without the community. Yes?
I remember when Mike. Thanks, sir.
I remember when our first son went to kindergarten, my wife was pretty tore up. We don't give parents any help with that or support, because going to, when you're with the child 24/7 for 5 years or whatever, and then they're off to school, it can be very trying till not only the child gets used to it, but the parents get used to it. Is there anything for that? And then I was also wondering if that might be a good time to get the parents involved in volunteering, so they can maybe come to school sometimes or see their child sometimes. Do we look at anything like that?
So a lot of our schools now have gone to exactly that. So you drop your child off and then they escort you away with Kleenexes. Sometimes they entice you with food like donuts or something like that. And then while they have you as a captive audience, they will provide you with opportunities to volunteer.
Yes.
Probably not right that time, but later on after your child has gotten settled. So yes, you're exactly right. It's a great time to talk to parents about what opportunities there are in schools. But also about saying they're going to be okay. They really are going to be okay. Usually it's harder on the parents than it is the kids.
Yes.
Dr. Muller, you said we had about 450 students signed up so far. Where is that?
475 right now.
475. Where is that in relation to where we've been in the past? Especially, because we've had lower numbers over the past couple of years.
It's a little hard to tell because we opened it 2 weeks early,
Yeah.
but we're a little bit ahead of that than where we were last year, even if you account for the extra 2 weeks. So, and we're hoping that as, we've only had one rally so far, the remainder of them will be taking place after spring break. And so once that happens, then we'll have the opportunity to have more social media coverage. I know Kimberly was there the other day. Every picture she took, she got permission to be able to use on social media. So continuing to create that informational hub for don't forget to register. The other really important piece about parents registering and about attending the rallies is that's the sooner they do that, that's the conduit by which we can get in touch with them about other events that will be coming up for them to take part in with their children.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just want to say, I think it's awesome that we have taken the rallies to the individual schools. I think that makes so much sense. And getting our parents and those children into their school. I think you'll see an increase in registration.
We've seen a lot of really good feedback about it. It's been pretty awesome. And the kids are really excited to be in big school.
Thank you.
And if I may make a quick observation, Dr. Marlowe, when she talks about CT programs, is very passionate, but not nearly as giddy as when she gets to talk about kindergarten registration and early childhood. So,
Reading program.
Right.
so certainly thank you for sharing.
All right, next up, board chair observations. I have none. Board member observations.
Yes, I do. Last Friday, I attended the Leader in Me Summit at North Henderson High School, and I'd like to give credit out to the principal at North Henderson High School and to Miss Peggy Marshall. What a wonderful program it is, and the students were just amazing in their presentations. Thank you.
Great. Anyone else?
Well, I also attended that meeting, and I was extremely impressed and really enjoyed the students and what they contributed, and they blew me away, just blew me away as far as their abilities to communicate and fill in the blanks and just flow. It was just wonderful. I also was able to attend and tour Atkinson Elementary, and again, just blown away by the staff and the students and the cleanliness of the place. And I'm just going to share one story that I shared. I was one of those mothers back years and years ago. My oldest graduated in 2004, and she had gone to preschool. That school is where I had to drop her off the first time into kindergarten, and I was one of the mothers that was up and down the hallway looking in the door and out the door, and they finally came out and said, "Mrs. Dale, we're going to have to ask you to leave." Everyone had gone. It was just a hard separation for me, but it was good for my daughter. So anyway, had a great week.
Jay was the one crying. All right, up next, you ladies have anything? Good to go? All right, public comments. I did just add 2. There's no more back there? We're good? Okay. First up's going to be Mr. Joe Elliott. If you'd come on down, we give you 3 minutes. And welcome, sir.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Absolutely.
I attended an interesting meeting a couple of weeks ago, which was held at a local church. The meeting was convened to discuss the impact of unconscious bias on students of color in our school system. Attendees included thought leaders from the communities of color, area churches with committees focused on the subject, teachers and administrators from this school system, retired teachers, professors and administrators for local higher education institutions, representatives from a local veterans group and a local civic advocacy group, parents with kids in our schools, and other concerned citizens. 4 working groups were formed to continue the discussion on the issues and to develop practical solutions. Katie Gash, who frequently addresses this meeting on this subject, was present to lend her voice and her expertise. I was reminded during that meeting that our county commissioners have devoted considerable resources in recent months to altering how we select our Board of Education, Perhaps their newfound interest in our schools can also be channeled into action to benefit our schools. I propose that the commissioners and the school board appoint a committee composed of representatives of each of those bodies, along with concerned citizens, to reach out to our representatives in Raleigh, specifically Mrs. Balcom and Mr. Moffett, to actively pursue release of the Leandro funds and to encourage the legislature to use a portion of our state's surplus funds to improve the health of our public schools. Those funds could be used to raise teacher salaries and fund the training that Mrs. Gash and that coalition of advocates focused on at the recent meeting. I would also urge that some of the funds be used to develop and nurture early childhood programs as mandated in the original Leandro plan. Better salaries would help us to attract and retain teachers, funding to explicitly address unconscious bias and the many microaggressions that are a daily fact of life for many Black students and other marginalized students would begin to address Mrs. Gash's well-founded concerns. Early childhood funding would produce entering kindergartners with enhanced social emotional skills that numerous studies show lead to better learning outcomes for all students. I also see much value in the cooperation among the commissioners, the school board, and our elected representatives focused on improving our schools. While our school system is among the best in this state, I fear that we will suffer a decline as the entire school system continues to slide down the national rankings based on funding, the constant turmoil, and the systemic failure to address the inequities that impact a significant portion of our student population. The health of our schools should be a priority for every citizen, and we owe it to our kids to recognize that right to the best educational opportunities that we can provide. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up is going to be Judy Bonner.
Hi. We didn't actually get together, Joe and I, but I'm speaking on something very similar. I would like to thank Superintendent Mark Garrett and Board Member Stacy Caskey for attending the February 18th community program, Take Action, Healing Unconscious Bias in the Henderson County School System, which was held at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Hendersonville. Thanks also to the board members who were willing but unable to attend due to previous engagements. We had good attendance and a productive afternoon. 4 working groups were formed to answer each of the following questions. 1, what step can be taken to educate staff on how they can help change any culture of racism at their school? 2, what steps can be taken to reduce microaggressions in the schools? 3, how can the school system and community reduce the inequity of suspensions of African American children? 4, what steps can be taken to assist Grow Your Own to attract staff that represent the African American community? We are reconvening in a couple of months to discuss our progress and next steps. We look forward to working with all of you to make sure our excellent school system works for every student. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bonner. Next up, we have Shannon Hood. Welcome, Ms. Hood.
Thank you. I'm going to speak my mind today, even while my voice shakes. And I'm not only here for myself and my son, but everyone who has a child in Henderson County Public Schools. Everyone, from preschool through. I could sit here and go on and on about the incidents that have occurred with my son since preschool. He nearly lost an eye in preschool. He was attacked repeatedly in first grade by a child. My son is in an EC class, exceptional children. He has autism. There was an incident that occurred at Etowah Elementary on January 12th. I spoke, actually it occurred on the 11th, I spoke with you on January 12th. You assured me my children were safe in your school system. As of Friday, January 14th, 2022, I received a call from Rugby Middle School stating that another teacher walked in on my son being sexually assaulted by another child at that school. I was then told by your administration, Miss Meadows, I'm sorry, my mind is a little everywhere right now, that I was not to take my son to the hospital. I was not to take him anywhere until he had a forensic exam, which was conducted by your administration 5 days later. 5 days later. So they couldn't tell anything. Still to this day, a year and nearly a half later, I know nothing about what happened to my son that day. Nothing. I have to go in front of a judge to have those things released to me. There was an interview conducted with my son that day by Officer Hoy, which I respect very much. Officer Hoy is an amazing man. I have no problem with him. What I don't like is the fact that his body cam wasn't working and that the interview that was conducted, I have to go in front of a judge to have released. So I get to walk into a courtroom full of criminals and explain what happened to my son. This here is humiliating enough. The only thing I asked this administration for were cameras. Dr. John Bryant promised me in a meeting that I would have cameras by August of this year. Where are they? My son was attacked 3 times. 3 times. This came out in the interview with Safe Flight and in speaking to me, speaking to my family about what happened to him. Your administration can only tell me about 1. Another problem I have is in the EC classrooms, children are never to be left alone, never to be left alone. My son was left alone because it was during COVID. His teacher was out with COVID for over 3 weeks. My child was left alone with a predator. And this happened on your time. I have no issues with Henderson County Public School. Went to the schools, Etowah, Rugby, and West. Went to those schools. I never had anything like this happen to me. But unfortunately, our times are changing and things are not the same. And I just don't understand why there's been no contact from your administration to my family to better this, to see what we can do. I'm not trying to hurt this administration. I want to help. I don't want this to happen to anyone. I've been over here crying the whole time because I remember the joy I had when my children started school. My son's innocence was taken from him. Period. End of discussion. He has been self-harming. This has been hell on my family. Pardon my French, but it has been hell on my family. Your administration offered him services that were then revoked because he has special needs and you didn't have the therapist to deal with that. So that's another problem that I have with that. I just want to know, why are there no cameras? There needs to be cameras. If there would have been cameras in those classrooms, this would have happened to my son once, and 1 time, not 3. 3 times. I just want to know where you guys stand on this, because I'm not okay with it, and I am this close to pulling my children from Henderson County. I wanted to show up here with News 13 today because I've been more than accommodating to everyone here. I have been kind and courteous, and I have not blasted this everywhere as I could have. Very well could have. I think that a lot of parents would probably pull their children right out of school if they realized what was going on. Ms. Meadows also addressed me, stating that I need not worry about my son returning to school because they were going to move David, the child who did this, or Daniel, excuse me, sorry.
You can't say names
Well,
of students.
sorry, I'm sorry. They were going to move that child and my son's schedule so he wouldn't have to see him. That is unacceptable, period. That child has since been removed from your school system. The only reason my child is back in school is because of Mr. McDarris. He is the only one that went above and beyond and reached out to me. No one else has. Dr. John Bryant, I had to schedule the meeting with him. That is unacceptable, period. Unacceptable. I feel as if this administration doesn't care, and this is being swept under the rug, and I'm not the mom to have that happen to. This has ruined my family. My son is not the same person he was. He's not. And I will never get my baby back, ever. So why aren't there cameras in the classroom? Because I have a recorded meeting with Dr. John Bryant stating, Scott Massington was at the meeting I had with Mr. McDarris. He was there. He said that there were cables in tow, that they were doing this, that these cameras would be here, and nothing. Crickets from this administration, crickets. So
Thank you, Ms. Hood.
I won't learn anything about the cameras.
What I'm gonna have is I'm gonna have Ms. Clayton come and take your information and set up a meeting with the superintendent. Honestly, this is the first that this board has heard about this. And so,
Are you kidding me?
we're not gonna have that discussion here. I don't think that's appropriate here, but Ms. Clayton, will you go get her information and set up a meeting with Mr. Garrett as soon as possible, please? Thank you.
Miss,
Thank you. Mr. Walters, you're next. Mr. Rhodes, will you take notes, please? On our next couple speakers till Ms. Clayton comes back.
Hello, everyone. I just want to acknowledge the last speaker. That was very troubling, and I heard what she said, and I appreciate what you said, Mr. Craven, in trying to figure out that problem. My experience as a teacher is that school systems are a very hard thing to penetrate. As a teacher, it's one of the most hardest things in local government to get through. So, thanks for. I hope that works out. Okay.
Thank you.
I want to talk about two words: a race and swimming pools. Race and swimming pools. If you don't remember anything else I say, please remember these two words. I was a language arts teacher, English language arts teacher in middle school for many years. Whenever I taught about I Have a Dream speech, Martin Luther King, I tried to do the best I could do, covering the background in civil rights and race. Somebody said that everybody knows 9 words. Somebody did a study. Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream, and Rosa Parks. Okay? I knew those words. Most of my students know those words. I taught what I would consider a very elementary, fairly conventional view of race. Problem solved. We had a problem with race, racism, civil rights. We solved the problem. That was my view. And I was a history teacher. I had a very simplistic view. I didn't find out much till I retired, started going to some racial equity seminars and studying on my own how deep it went. And shocking to me. So I'm going to the issue of race and swimming pools. Oh, I have a minute here. I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to refer to a book by Heather McGee called What Racism Costs Everyone and How We Can Prosper Together. In the 1920s and 30s, municipalities all over the country built massive resplendent swimming pools, hundreds, and probably, I think they counted 2,000 major municipal swimming pools. In the 1950s, black people petitioned for use of public swimming pools, and they saw 3 things. Some municipalities privatized their swimming pools, turned them over to private clubs, sold them, and then they only accepted white people. The others, where white swimming pools in white neighborhoods were accessible by black kids, they policed those with violence and harassment. The other thing they did was shut them down completely. They shut their whole rec program down, and I don't have time to read from this now, but she relates the swimming pool in Montgomery, Alabama. Massive swimming pool complex. Rather than allow black people to share public resources that they paid for, they shut down the pool. They not only shut it down, but they came and put cement and dirt in the pool. And while this shows how far, what white people were willing to do to their own kids, punish their own kids by depriving them of swimming pool and parks. And it's, I'm grateful to people that have written all these books, black people have written all these books. They're doing it for white people, okay? They already know it. So it's up to us to read the books, it's up to you to read the books. If you don't want to, nobody can help you, okay? But I just recommend this book, and if you don't read, I'm getting older, I don't have time to read books a lot. So I read books on tape, okay? I listen, but I buy them, and I can go back and refer to them.
Thank you, Mr. Walters.
Thank you.
Pause for a second. Ms. Clayton, Mr. Rhodes took the notes for that one, so you ready? Whenever you're ready, you just let me know. All right, Madison Gosnell, come on down. Welcome.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Madison Gosnell, and I'm a student at the Innovative High School Career Academy, and I'm a member of the Boys and Girls Club and the RISE program. Today, I am here to address a lot of the issues with bullying and drama that has been happening in our schools. Our kids, even teachers around us, are being affected by these actions, which have caused a lot of decrease in student education and student learning. I want to talk about how we can take action against this. Kids are truly being affected, and some have gone to the extremes. Some have bullied others back. Some have fought, and some have even taken their own lives. We have lost many students that were precious to us because of bullying and drama that has happened in our schools. And it's spreading like a disease. I have seen and experienced these myself, and I want to be able to help the students, even the teachers around me, solve these problems. First, I had thought about an anonymous reporting form. I know that there is an app called Say Something, but I'm also thinking we start another form so that school counselors will be able to see these and be able to take action against this. And second, I was thinking of a day or maybe a week to raise awareness to our students and our families about the effects and hardships that bullying and drama has caused in our schools, our homes, and even social media lives. None of us want this. None of our friends want this. Families want this. Not y'all. Nobody. Not even ourselves. It has truly affected our community and our schools. And I just want to be able to go to school without someone maybe telling me that, hey, because you're a girl, you can't do this, or because like you're black, you can't do this, or like I want to be able to go to a school where there's no drama, no bullying, just be able to be free from that. It's really hard to go through that every single day whenever people are telling you to go kill yourselves, whenever there are people who are telling you can't do this because your sex orientation, your gender, like they just can't, like it's heartbreaking. I have lost friends because of bullying. I have seen what this has done, and I've nearly lost my own life because of bullying. So I want to take action against it and be able to stop it for once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Madison. Well, okay. Next up is the consent agenda. We are removing items G, H, and I from the consent agenda. I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda with items G, H, and I removed. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Consent is approved. We have no old business. Does anybody need to take a break? You guys good? Am I good? Okay. All right. No old business. Moving on to new business, discussion policy 2200, election of officers and organization of the board. We're going to go through a lot of policies. We're going to knock out this one and teacher recruitment signing bonus, and then we will get to Mr. Anderson to talk about our audit. But first up, policy 2200. Ms. Caskey, Dr. Revison mentioned this policy before. This is something that actually we had talked about in a workshop not too long ago about adding things that aren't on the North Carolina School Boards Association policies. This would be one of them. The board, I believe, put this in 2018, March 12th, it looks like. And as you can see there, I'll go ahead and let Ms. Caskey go from here on why she wanted to bring this policy up, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you. In looking at the policies, which is obviously a main task of the board members, this one stood out to me, especially because in thinking of the last 3 huge projects, 2 of which are still going on, and when they began, specifically Hendersonville High School, Upward Elementary, and Berkeley Park situation, which is currently going on. The time frame for introducing one of these projects and completion has now escalated. I would say these things are taking 6-7 years to get done.
To say the least.
And in looking at policy 2200, it says that an elected chairperson and vice chairperson could serve a term of 1 year or until his successor is elected and qualifying. They take the office. I'm going to summarize it. Basically, it says that the chairperson cannot serve more than 4 consecutive years, then cannot serve for 2 years, and then could be reelected. What concerns me, and we've actually seen this, the board changes every 2 years. And even though we have this election every year, new board members, to me, are basically being kept from electing whomever they want by an old board who's no longer there. So, in effect, Ms. Norman and Ms. Dale could have joined our board and been told, okay, well, you could vote for everyone except for, Mr. Bridges. And to me, it seems like an overreach to tell a new board who they could elect. This won't keep them from choosing whomever they'd like. Obviously, it doesn't say that the person who's the chairperson remains the board automatically. There will be an election each year. But it seemed like it seemed like overreach to me. It seemed frightening because I think it's a waste of taxpayer dollars if there's a new board chairperson who doesn't have the same legacy knowledge that a prior board chairperson had. Berkeley Park is the perfect example because I cannot even imagine how many real estate meetings, attorney meetings, that I know that Mr. Craven has had repeatedly and knows so much more about that particular situation than we as board, we as board members get a summary, of course, from him, but he has sat in on all these meetings. And, I think about other board members as well. And if all of a sudden somebody else had to take the ball on that, they might have a different vision than we originally had and change things up, and it might wind up causing taxpayers to pay for that flub. Ultimately, I think that each board should have the ability to decide on their own leadership. I'm not really sure why this policy came into play.
Well, I was here when this policy came into play, and I can tell you why. So, first of all, I've got a question for our attorney. What part of this policy is part of the North Carolina School Board Association? Just the top paragraph? The second paragraph is not. But how the vote happens is when the election is, it's the December after whatever is. And
Right, that the term, from the first paragraph, that the term is 1 year until successor elected.
So we added that second paragraph.
Yes.
So the reason that the board at that particular time added that paragraph is that we had come off, I believe it was 18 years for Irvin Basil as the chair. We were, as I remember it, we were warned to, kind of like we were just talking about a minute ago, messing with the policies, and then they kind of they take a life of their own when you start adding something in or taking words out of the national policies that are coming out, or the policies that are coming out from the North Carolina State's School Boards Association. But that was kind of the reasoning behind that vote at that particular time. That was it.
And it could be, in fairness, I think projects might have taken less time back then. I mean, obviously, we know there have been supply chain issues and whatnot. I just, knowing how long things are from beginning till end, it's kind of hard to just change up, the person who's making the agenda each week based on someone who might not have the same legacy knowledge as the person before.
Yeah, and when she brought this up to me, and I mean, Dr. Revis had mentioned something to me about it, it makes sense. She was like, why can't, if somebody's on the board that made this decision 6 years ago or 5 years ago, whatever, and then new people get on the board, then why do you get the chance to not vote for somebody versus whatever? So I told her to put it on here. Here we go. Any thoughts or anything on that second paragraph as it relates to this policy?
What is,
You put your mic on, please.
tell me, how do other boards, like namely maybe the Board of Commissioners, how are they, do you know?
Yeah, so they typically do not have any defined, you have to be this many years, roll off, whatever. No, it's, they kind of work in a rolling order anyways, from what it seems. But there is no defined process. And did you do anything different at McDowell?
No, there was no adjustment, just the state statutes, what we followed there.
Yeah. So that's why it was brought up. There's no rhyme or reason.
The one thing that I would say, as a general rule, I am, against term limit. I am for term limits, but I don't know what you define as a term limit. I think to get fresh ideas, to get new direction, 18 years, I wasn't serving at that time, so I can't really comment, but 18 years to me sounds like a long time.
Then again, his board members voted for him 18 times, and so I know when we were sitting in here and we were going through 50 policies a day, that was the thought that was brought up. And I don't know which board member brought it up, if it was Mr. Korn or if it was Ms. Holt or me. I don't remember. We went through every single policy in this whole policy book during that time to adopt the North Carolina School Board Association policy. And we had just come off of his last term, and I think that was why it was like really fresh. So, but whatever you guys want to do, want to keep it, want to get rid of it?
I mean, I agree with what Jay is saying. Obviously, we wouldn't want the same stale ideas if they were not working, but that's why there's an election each year. So it's not where anybody is locked in, given, granted, bestowed, whatever you want to call, knighted. Would you like to be knighted?
No.
Knighted. It's that it gives each new board a chance to say, that's not the direction we want to go in. So we'd like to, elect, Ms. Norman as a chairperson or whatever. But to me, it gives the board the chance to do that rather than taking it out of the hands. I mean, let's face it, the next election, we have 4 seats. All 4 of those seats could obviously change. And that board should be able to elect whomever they want. It just seems like we shouldn't be deciding future boards. I think that's where I was headed with that.
So are you making a motion?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion just to remove that second paragraph, which is not part of the NC School Board Association policies. It was one that was added in. I understand the reasoning for it, but I feel like we're affecting the
ability for future school boards to choose their own leadership.
Is there a second for that? And is she correct in that? That second paragraph is not in the School Board Association policy manual, and
She is correct, and it's not required by law.
it's not required by law.
There's no local legislation or anything that would require that. So yes, she is correct. I was going to say, though, to change the policy, according to your other policy, 2410, you need to bring it, because you did not publish it, you need to bring it back to vote to actually approve it.
For a second, or bring it back for action a second
Right.
time?
Have to advertise it as an action.
Right.
So what is there a motion that's made there, or just a discussion, and then we bring it back for another meeting? Okay. Any other discussion on it?
That's the one thing that I was going to say. I didn't know, I obviously knew this was going to be discussed. I didn't know what was going to be discussed. I didn't know which was state law or which wasn't. I was going to ask for just a little time to ingest it. Is that the word? Digest it?
Ingest, digest.
But I think the law says that anyway, so.
All right, so we'll bring it back next month to discuss again, give everybody a month to sit on it, see what they think, and go from there.
And it was 2410 that you said it was
Right.
piggyback.
Yeah, 2410 just says, yes, if you're proposing to change a policy. So I think then what you're directing the administration to do is to bring a policy back, maybe with that second paragraph deleted, and then you can.
Just bring back the North Carolina School Boards Association policy.
And we'll have that for consideration and potential action.
Good?
So again, we're saying the first paragraph,
It's everything except for the
third
second.
paragraph, the fourth paragraph.
Yep, and
Not the second. That's it.
And the legal references, the cross references will be the same, and then, of course, the adopted would be a different date if we re-adopted it, but, yeah, that second paragraph is the only thing that we added.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, any other things on that? Moving on. Mr. Scott Rhodes, teacher recruitment signing bonus. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Craven. Board, bring this to your attention. We brought this to the board last year as an attempt to recruit teachers to our school system. We are proposing using $1,500 signing bonuses out of the ESSER funds. Those are the federal dollars that we have, starting tomorrow, all the way through the start of the new school year for hiring purposes. We found that this strategy last year was successful, as we only had about 4 of our full-time teaching positions that were not filled, and those were with some of our more difficult positions to fill, like Spanish, and maybe 1 math position and just a couple other positions. So we do believe this is an effective strategy to help us recruit teachers to Henderson County Public Schools. I'll be happy to take any questions.
I have questions. Last year, didn't we have a retainment bonus or retention bonus that was kind of tied to not only this, but for our teachers that are currently here?
So the retention bonus was a different bonus that we had last year, and I don't remember all of the particulars about the dollar amount, but that was separate from this bonus.
And so this bonus would last from now until August 15th, 14th, whatever it is.
Yes, sir, to the start of our first school day.
And how much have you allocated to this?
I'll look over to the chief financial officer for the dollar amount that what did we put in last year, Mr. Socia? I want to say a little over 100,000, I believe, out of ESSER funds.
And we didn't use all of it.
No.
And these ESSER funds remain active through when?
September of 2024.
Okay.
So any of those funds we don't use, they get to go back to the federal government.
Okay.
And one of the biggest, I'm sure, or maybe not one of the biggest, but obviously one of the difficulties in recruiting is that housing is expensive, and maybe $1,500 could help somebody move here who might not have been thinking of the area.
Here's what I've learned in almost 30 years in this business is nothing says I appreciate you more than a paycheck. And so anything that we can do to help recruit folks to want to come to Henderson County Public Schools, I can tell you that when I'm at a recruiting event and I can put on my table that we have a $1,500 signing bonus, and my neighbors to the north and south don't, I have a little bit of an advantage.
And these are overall signing bonuses. These are not specific to hard-to-fill content areas or
Ma'am.
anything like that,
These
just
are just
overall
certified
signing
teaching
bonuses.
positions, certified staff, full-time, yes, sir.
Do you know, and I probably should, but I don't. Do you know how many full-time teachers we've already hired for this year, just this year?
That we've hired for this year?
Just this year. It's
I
only
don't
been
have that
2 months.
number off the top of my head. We have about 900 teachers, so
Yeah.
we normally hire somewhere between 65 and 80 a year. That's
Hate to
normal
hire.
for
That's
my
throughout the
situation.
year, not from
I'm talking
now
about-
until August, right?
Well, in our
talking about-
hiring season, what I would, again, clarify is our hiring season is between the end of school or when we started actually in May, when we know who retirements are and we want to start get our allotments situated, and we know what our staffing is gonna look like.
I was just gonna say, if I was hired last week, I'd be mad.
No, we're
And I didn't
not
get
ready to
signing
hire yet.
bonus.
We've still got quite a bit of time for this year, but our plan is to start hiring by the end of April.
Yeah, I mean, the date's March 7th on there, so.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, you're correct, sure.
yeah.
Well, we always want to get the best applicants, of course, so anything that gives you an edge, as you said, to the people sitting on either side of you. Even 80 new teachers, he said between 60 and 80 would be, what, 120,000?
120 be
That's a pretty good investment in our students if we could get 80, quality teachers that might have gone elsewhere because, our supplement is lower than somewhere else. So, I mean, I definitely support this.
I support it. I just wish we would have thought about it in December. If hired people in January or February,
So normally this time of year, Mr. We're not hiring very many full-time positions. Most of the people we're hiring right now are
So
interim
it shouldn't be that
positions.
much bonus that we have to pay out. I'm just saying, if you were hired last week, I'd be pretty mad. If I was hired last week full-time, and this starts March 7th,
Did we hire a full-time teacher last week?
There you go. That's good.
or last month, not just last week.
But I think it's like he says, usually this time of year, if we hire anybody, we just put them on an interim contract, not a
Yes, ma'am.
full-time contract.
Then they would get a full-time contract now, and then they would be eligible for this come August, whatever.
Yeah, if we've hired a person right now this time of year, Mr. Eagle,
They will
normally
be
what that
eligible.
looks like, that's an interim position. And that position is going to end at the end of the year, so they would have an opportunity to reapply, and then they would be eligible for the bonus, to your point.
But we did not give any retention bonuses this year, am I correct?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Questions?
Well, anecdotally, yeah, I get calls from parents, and obviously it's not just this county. But I get calls from parents all the time where they're like, my kid is just dying in math because there's been a sub there all year. Or there's someone who's a Spanish teacher who's teaching math, or there's somebody who's teaching biology. And my kid is just really struggling. He was interested in becoming pre-med, and now he doesn't know if he wants to because he's done nothing in biology you think of all of these stories and you just start to add them up, and if we could scoop in the best possible teachers for our kids, I think this is a great idea. And I wouldn't care if I was hired last week and didn't get it. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Right. Then make a motion if you guys are happy with it.
And one thing I might add is, Mr. Rhodes and Mr. Sosa have been working on allotments already because we want to get out of the gate as early. We don't have anything from the state at all at this point, but through their veteran knowledge and having done this for a few years, we're going to try to make sure that we have those allotment meetings very soon so that we know the positions and we get out in front as much as we can. And this will help us do that as well.
When does your recruiting start, big time,
Really this month.
this month?
We've already been to North Greenville. We'll be going to Western Carolina, Appalachian State, UNC Charlotte. We've been to Georgia. We've been to a lot of places. But the unfortunate part, and I appreciate the support here, folks, there's an issue in education, as you already know. The number of folks are out there. One of our biggest recruitment fairs is the RESA Job Fair. As Ms. Lopez will tell you, in her former days as the HR director in Buncombe County, that was one of the biggest events that we would have throughout the year. Right now, we don't have anyone, as of last week, signed up for the recruitment fair. And it's being put out all over Western North Carolina, the universities and everywhere. So we're contemplating within 2 weeks whether or not we're going to actually offer the RESA Job Fair. And I think Ms. Lopez said that would be a first. And so that tells you the predicament we're in when we're out looking for folks. And so, again, I appreciate the support of being able to offer just a small monetary incentive.
I need to make a comment. I guess the board misunderstood me by making a comment about they don't care who was hired last week. I do care who was hired last week. I want to include them, not disclude them. I want to go with this policy and include people that have been hired this year that may not have been included. Apparently, it was taken wrong.
No, I don't
That
think
I'm not saying that as a way to not do this. So I do care who was hired last week, and I do care who was hired last month, because they should also deserve this. Thank you.
No, Jay, I'm sorry. I think you misunderstood what I said. Yeah, no, I apologize. People who were hired recently would have been hired on an interim basis. So when they do get hired, or if they do get hired for a full-time basis, they would receive this bonus. That's what I meant.
So I just have a question. I keep turning myself off.
It's okay.
Okay. It's not a walkie-talkie, is it?
Like being on Jeopardy.
Yeah. Is it possible to increase the $1,500 if that money isn't used and it goes back to the federal government? What would be the possibility of increasing that?
You talking about for this year?
Mm-hmm.
So it would be difficult to increase it for this year, again, because as we get ready to look at, that doesn't go away from a year from September. So what we could look at, if the board decided wanting to increase the amount of what that incentive might look like for the previous hire, for the next hiring season, then that's obviously something that the board decided they wanted to do. Or if you choose to right now, I mean, we can go back and look at our ESSER funds and see what's there and how that's been budgeted. And again, if you said, hey, we want to increase that, we can bring back a number of what we believe would be appropriate. Again, one of the reasons why we set this at $1,500, and this will be for our new board members, is that the bonus, the retention bonus we gave, I guess, what was the number? Was it 2,500 or 2,000? And so what we wanted to make sure that we didn't go above that, because we felt like that would be a kind of a slap in the face to our current employees, that if we were to give more than 2,000, we gave our current employees a retention bonus of this, and then if our hiring bonus was more. But again, it's up to the board to decide. And Mr. Egoff, I would say this to you as well, and it's up to the board to decide this. The reason we put this at the beginning of the school year is just as, again, as a way to incentivize getting folks here immediately. If you decided to change this language to say anytime during the school year that we bring anybody into a permanent full-time position, that we would pay this bonus, then obviously you as a board, you could decide to do that. And we wouldn't argue with you. I mean, there's been times when we've had opportunities to hire a full-time math teacher after the start of school that we would love to be able to get this bonus, but because of the way it was written last year, we didn't have the opportunity. So that's a choice of the board as well.
Before we make that decision, I'd like to see that number.
Which number is that?
So we did a signing bonus last year.
Mm-hmm.
So that cut off around the same time as this one's going to cut off. So then I would like to see, before we get too gung-ho, is see how many full-time teachers did we hire between when that cut off from last year's signing bonus to March 6th, 2023, before we, spend money that we don't have.
I think my only concern is, like Mr. Rhodes says, he's getting ready to hit recruiting season.
No,
right
what
now.
I mean is to go back. This I'm cool with. What I'm saying is going back and looking at the past year before we go back and look at the past year and start allocating, we hired 50 people then, that's another $75,000. We need to make sure that all of our ESSER funds we've got all of our ESSER funds kind of knocked out right here. They've been doing a really good job. And this is ESSER 3, I'm assuming, right? Bernie? Yep.
Is this setting us apart from our competition?
So my last paint meeting that I had, I don't know of anyone else other than Nashville City who is doing a signing bonus. Now, since they know we are, they may change their minds. I don't know. But the last meeting we had, we were the only other school system in Western North Carolina.
What we do know, it's been proven by research over and over, the most determining factor in student learning is the quality and effectiveness of that teacher. So that's where we need to put our money. And if this sets us apart and gives us an edge in getting that highly effective teacher, then we need to do this.
And if it pleases the board, we'll find that number. If you approve this, we'll bring back an extra number for you of what it looked like between the start of school and where we're at today.
Yeah.
And you can decide then if you want to increase that.
I feel like we always have
We'll make up
this
another-
conversation when we do this stuff. Every time.
It's okay.
It's
You
okay.
always want to know about that money, don't you?
Well, I want to know before you start giving, you need to know how many people you're actually are going to pay before you start paying them. You need to know the money's in the bank before you write that check. You know what I'm saying, Ms. Garrett?
In addition, with the funding that we're using, we also need to make sure that it aligns with that plan of your ESSER 3 plan that you've already got in place and that's been
Oh,
approved.
let it go to revert.
Yes, so, that's the other piece, is we've got to forecast that out and also make sure that those approvals are there in order to use this in the way that we submitted the plan, and this plan was approved at the state level as well. So we can do that, we can have that in April, no problem.
Would anyone like to make a motion on this request?
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the $1,500 signing bonuses for teachers hired in full-time permanent positions between March 7th, 2023 and the start of the 23-24 school year from available ESSER funds.
Is there a second? Whoa, who won? Ms. Dale won.
I'll take that.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next, audit report. Bernie, this is your favorite time of year. I know it.
It's a Super Bowl.
It's his Super Bowl. It is.
It is.
133 pages.
And I'm here to do the
Of your
coin
Super Bowl.
flip, and then I'm going to go sit down.
Okay.
I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Anderson. It is that time of year again. And Mr. Anderson and his firm have completed our audit. It has been submitted to Raleigh and been approved, and he is here to present to you the summary of what they determined to be our financial position at the end of last June 30th, 2022. So I'll
Take it away,
to
sir.
him, and if you have any questions for him or me along the way, just let me know.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be here today and for allowing our firm to conduct the audit of the board's financial records for the 2021-2022 year. What I'd like to do before I review the details of the report and the results for the year is to discuss the audit process and procedures that we perform. Then I will review the results of the governmental funds, which include the local current expense or general fund, the state public school fund, the federal grants, capital outlay, other restricted and individual school funds. Following that, I will highlight the results for the enterprise funds, which include child nutrition and child care funds. And lastly, I'll summarize the results of the audit. Under the risk-based approach, auditors are required to gain an understanding of the nature of the Board of Public Education's business operations and its environment. Because of this, our audit procedures are designed to analyze the board's operations and policies and procedures that are in use in order to determine whether these processes are operating as intended. Part of this process is conducting interviews with the finance staff of the central office, but also interviewing other staff both at the central office as well as the individual schools in order to gain a better understanding of the internal controls and segregation of duties that are in place. A key component of a risk-based approach is to look for fraud and the risk of fraud taking place. Part of these processes are fraud risk questionnaires that we issue to selected staff as well as to board members. The board should be cognizant of where fraud risks are with the Board of Public Education and the steps that management takes to mitigate those risks. An auditor is not charged with the responsibility of finding fraud, but if any fraud is found or if the auditor believes that there is a risk of fraud taking place, then the auditor is required to discuss this with management and board and to determine if additional audit procedures are necessary. Once the audit team has gained an understanding of the board's operations, then the next step is to test compliance with the adopted policies and procedures that are in place. Since every transaction cannot be examined, we structure our testing based on where we determine the greatest risks are and on amounts that we consider to be significant to the Board of Public Education's financial statements. As mentioned, we also audit the individual schools. A staff member of the finance department carries out some of the audit procedures for the individual schools. We review that work and also conduct interviews at several schools each year on a rotating basis. The goal is the same as with the central office, to be able to determine if the policies and procedures that are in place are operating as intended, and determining that the internal controls and segregation of duties are adequate and operating effectively. We determined that the internal control and segregation duties, both at the central office and at the individual school level, have been appropriately designed and are generally operating as intended. Also, as I've reported to the board previously, we're required to conduct an audit of the board's federal and state financial assistance. We're required to rotate which programs that are looked at each year. We verify that the internal controls and segregation of duties over federal and state awards are in place and operating effectively. And we test selected programs for compliance with the requirements for each program as set forth by various governmental agencies and the Department of Public Instruction. Now I'd like to review some of the financial details that are in your report. This display comes from Exhibit 4, which is found on pages 17 and 18 of your annual financial report. The governmental fund revenues, which include your local current expense funds, state public school, federal grants, capital outlay, other restricted, as well as the individual schools funds. The total revenues for the 2021-22 year were $150.4 million, an increase of $15.7 million in comparison to the previous year. Total revenues reflect an 11.7% increase in comparison to the 2020-2021 year. More than 20% of those total revenues are in the general fund, 74% in the state public school and federal grants fund, with the remaining 6% in the capital outlay, other restricted, and individual school funds. And you'll note the last item with the additional state and federal COVID-related grant funding in both the state public school fund and federal grants fund reported that $12.8 million of that additional $15 million in revenues, or 13% increase, came in those two funds. This display also presents information that's detailed in Exhibit 4 on pages 17 and 18, which provides summary of revenues and expenditures for all the governmental funds. In comparing these exhibits with prior year amounts, revenues in the general or local current expense fund increased by $495,000 from 2020 to 2021, and then by $1.3 million from 2021 to 2022. Special revenue fund revenues reflect an increase of $3.9 million from 2020 to 2021, and then, as I mentioned, an increase of $15.2 million, or 14.9% for the 2022 year. Capital projects fund revenues reflect a decrease in 2021 compared to 2020 due to the completion of the Edneyville Elementary School project, then a decrease of $720,000 for the most recent year. This slide details the breakdown of your governmental fund revenues for the 2022 year into the major revenue sources as presented on pages 17 and 18. The majority of the revenues, representing 61.8% of the total, are from the state of North Carolina. 20.9% comes from Henderson County, 13.5% from federal sources, 2.4% are generated at the individual school level, and the remaining 1.4% represents miscellaneous revenue sources. On the expenditure side, also from the same Exhibit 4, total expenditures in the governmental funds totaled $147.3 million compared to $130.7 million for the previous year. That reflects an increase of 12.7%, and 77.6% of those expenditures are represented in instructional services, 18.9% in system-wide support services, 1.5% in debt service and capital outlay, and 2% in ancillary and non-program charges. This display presents an expenditure comparison for the past 3 fiscal years. General fund expenditures decreased by $1.45 million from 2020 to 2021, and then were $1.6 million higher in 2022. This increase, offset by corresponding increase in revenue, resulted in a $2.14 million surplus for the year, leading to an overall increase in fund balance. Special revenue expenditures have increased in each of the 3 years presented, and the capital projects expenditures increased in the 2020 year and then decreased somewhat in the following 2 years. This slide provides a breakdown of your governmental fund expenditures by functional type, as presented on pages 17 and 18 in the report. As noted, instructional services made up 77.6% of total governmental fund spending, 18.9% in system-wide support, 1.5% in debt service and capital outlay, and 2% in other charges. This is a presentation related to Exhibit 5 on pages 20 through 23. This presents the general fund, state public school fund, federal grants, and other restricted funds expenditures budgeted versus actual by the major functional categories. In all of the functional areas, actual spending for the year was less than budgeted amounts. The management and the board continue to maintain good fiscal control in maintaining the budget for all funds. As far as the fund balance in general fund, and comes from Exhibit 3 on pages 15 and 16, you had total fund balance in general fund of a little more than $7.5 million at the end of the 2022 year. This is an increase of $2.1 million compared to the 2021 year, or a combined increase of $4.8 million over the last 5 years. $6.2 million of that fund balance is unrestricted and unassigned, which represents an increase of $1.1 million in comparison to the previous year. And your unrestricted and unassigned fund balance is the equivalent of 21.8% of general fund expenditures for the year, an increase of 2.8% compared to the 2021 amount of 19%. The unrestricted and undesignated unassigned amount is continuing to increase as a reflection of sound fiscal management by both management and the board. This exhibit shows the allocation of your general fund balance for each of the last 3 years, comparing your restricted and assigned fund balance to the unrestricted and unassigned fund balance. As you can see here, the amount of unrestricted and unassigned balance stood at $2.5 million in the 2020 year, and in the following year, in the 2020 year, and the following year it increased to $5.1 million, and then this past year increased to $6.2 million. The restricted and assigned amounts are principally driven by amounts restricted by state statute and appropriations for subsequent year's budget. And the enterprise funds are business-type activities with the intention of being financed either in whole or in part by fees charged. These include your school food service and your child care funds. The school food service has an unrestricted reserve at the end of the year of $4.05 million, and that's an increase of $1.5 million. This is not exactly found in the report because the report is required to include pension and other post-employment benefits, but the $4.05 million ties more to what you reported to on a monthly basis. And same with the child care fund, that has an unrestricted reserve of $2.8 million at year end, which is a $2.3 million increase compared to the year before. And lastly, the audit results were an unmodified audit opinion, which which means in my firm's judgment, the financial statements presented in your report are a fair presentation of the board's financial standing at June 30, 2022, and for the year ended. We had no significant audit adjustments, no single audit findings, and no question costs. As mentioned earlier, based on our analysis and audit procedures, we determined the internal controls and the segregation of financial duties have been designed effectively and appear to be operating as intended. In our recommendation letter to the board, we did highlight several areas where we believe some improvements in operating efficiency related to the reconciliation of certain accounts and various operating funds for the board. On behalf of my firm, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity again to provide our services to the board. I'd like to express my thanks to management and to the staff, particularly Mr. Garrett, Mr. Sosha, and the administrative and finance staffs for their expertise and cooperation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions about any of that?
What other schools you do schools, correct?
He does lots of boards.
I mean, yeah, I was just gonna say, if there's ever a question about who we choose to do our audit, you guys handle a lot of school boards and a lot of schools.
We do.
Any questions on any of that fund balance stuff or enterprise funds or?
Well, I gave it my all, I'll just say that. I mean, I weeded through until my brain said, please run. So I want to thank you for what you do, and I want to thank you for what you do. And it's almost like the same thing. I just want to say stop. I wasn't here while this budget was being crafted, and so I'm new to this. It is overwhelming, but I just want to say thank you for all that you do, and for the report being so detailed.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, sir. I will take a motion whenever someone's ready.
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the financial statements and independent auditor's report as of June 30th, 2022, and for the fiscal year then ended.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, sir.
As we transition, I do want to thank Mr. Socia and his entire department. That's a lot. And to manage that and to come out, no findings, recommendations is absolutely amazing, and a testament not only to the folks in this building, but all in the schools and in the other ancillary departments that we have. By far the largest budget around, and certainly they do it very professionally, very ably, and very accurately, which is a blessing. So thank you, Mr. Socia, all the way to the school level and operational level folks.
Awesome. All right, policy update. So, Mr. Carl Taylor, come on down. Welcome to the hot seat, sir. We have 22 policies. Actually, we've got, how many did we approve? And it's not on this sheet.
5 in the consent.
5, so 27 policy updates on our spring policy updates from the North Carolina School Board Association. So normally how I do these is we only have to approve these one time. If you're bringing a new policy, you have to bring it before for a first reading, then you have to do a second reading. This one, since it's just updates, we have to just do it once. So, in the interest of time, I would like to welcome anyone that has specific policies that they would like to discuss here and now. And I'll start over here on this side of the room. We'll kind of compile a list on which ones we want to talk about, and then we'll knock those out, and then we'll vote, and we'll get them all knocked out. Does that work? Kind of, sort of, maybe? Cool. Ms. Norman, do you have any that you would like to discuss?
I only have one.
Okay.
That would be policy 6220,
All right, let's go to it.
operation of school nutrition services.
Okay.
Do you want him to present?
Yeah, he can go ahead and present that, and then you can, really, this one is, there's 9 new words, and so I'm assuming it's one of those 9 words, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good. All right, so here for policy 6220, this policy update adds a parenthetical clarifying that sex includes pregnancy, childbirth, sexual orientation, and gender identity. And then also this update adds a footnote as well. So those are the two updates in regards to this policy on operation of school nutrition services.
Okay. So what was your question here?
So my only concern with this was the change to, in parentheses there behind sex. I personally, I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it really has a place in this policy. I think sex as its own category is totally appropriate, and I don't think we need to go into it anymore. That's my only, I would prefer that all of the verbiage in between the two parentheses were not included. I don't know if anyone else wants to add, but that's.
Okay. Anybody else? This, nope.
I agree. I just think it's just an added amount of verbiage that just doesn't make any sense to me. I understand the reasoning behind it, but I think it's just a little overreach. If we could discuss it a little more, or maybe table this one and come back to it, I'd be willing to do that.
Let's talk about this policy. Ms. Lopez, why were those words included on this particular policy during this particular update?
So according to the North Carolina School Board Association, who the school system contracts with to provide policy updates, in May of 2022, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which oversees your child nutrition program, issued a memo to say that child nutrition programs have a prohibition on discrimination by reason of sex, and that sex now, because of a Supreme Court case from 2020, includes discrimination based on gender identity and sexual orientation. And so that language was added. The School Board Association has, in other policies where it prohibits discrimination based on sex, has included that same language, that because of court cases, sex is defined by federal law to include pregnancy, childbirth, sexual orientation, and gender identity. So the School Board Association considers this, some changes they make are optional or highly recommended. They consider this a required change. But of course, that, is up to the Board of Education whether or not you add that language, but it is considered a required change by the School Board Association. Does that help?
Any other questions, comments? Anybody want to pull it? We have two folks one that wants to pull it, and one that wants to get rid of it. Our attorney's saying that this is essentially, it is required. Required language, which this will not be the last time we probably see this, and it's probably in other policies that we have as well.
If we just omit the language, the parenthetical language, then is that, Alyssa, what you're concerned? Okay.
It's just within the parentheses. I think it's completely unnecessary. I understand that this is something that's kind of now the thing that we want to put the definition, but we don't list out all the different races or all the ages, or if we, I just think if you say sex, it means all of the sexes, all of the genders. I don't understand why it's necessary, and I just don't think that including this verbiage that a lot of people are very uncomfortable with is necessary. I think it fully encompasses, we are not discriminating on anyone, period, based on their gender. I don't feel comfortable including these in our policies. I don't think it's necessary. We already cover every single gender that there could be, and I'm not going to argue with how many there are, by saying sex. So I just think if we start including this verbiage now, people are going to feel, or a lot of people are going to feel very uncomfortable. I don't want this verbiage used in any policy. I think saying sex, gender, whichever completely covers it. I don't think it's necessary to include these words that make a lot of people start feeling uncomfortable or feeling very passionate one way or another. Does that make sense?
Is pregnancy a gender?
It's not, and that's also why I'm confused why it's in there. I was leaning more towards the sexual orientation and the gender identity. I just think a lot of people just feel uncomfortable when they start seeing these words, and I think if you say, we're not going to discriminate based on sex or gender, that means, whatever that definition means to you, that means we're not discriminating on people, period. I personally don't want what's in the parentheses there. Obviously, everyone has their own opinion and vote. I vote we do not include what's in the parentheses. It's not like we're not, now people of a certain orientation or whatever are now allowed to be discriminated. That is not what that means.
Is that a motion or you said vote? Is that
Or,
a
I mean,
motion?
everybody has their own opinion on what to do with this. My only issue with all of these was what's in these parentheses. I
So
don't want them in there.
Are you making a motion to take that out of there?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I second it. Oh. I second that.
Is there any other discussion on this particular issue?
Since this, oh, I'm sorry.
If I just ask for clarification, however, without the parenthetical language, we still have to use the definition from the Supreme Court about sex, correct? We just don't have to have it included in our particular
Does this open us up to any problems and possibly?
That's what I was
We don't include this?
So to go in order with
Yeah.
your questions, so yes, the law of the land is you can't discriminate against someone because of their sex, as sex is defined by the U.S. Supreme Court. So it doesn't change the law.
It doesn't change. We're
Right,
just
put
not
it in policy
including
or not.
that terminology in the parenthetical
Right.
explanation.
Right. But then to Mr. Craven's policy, or question, does it open you up to any problems? So if you were to have a claim, your policy would not include that language. And so if there was an EEOC claim, for example, the EEOC is going to want to see your policy. And they're going to say, why is this language not in your policy? You also would be running counter to the vast majority of school systems in the state of North Carolina. So you might have to explain why you do not have that language. And whether that would present a problem with your insurance carrier who would be defending you in the event of a claim, that is unclear. I mean, I can't say definitively it would present a problem or not. Again, it might be something that it might present a challenge to the school board if you were defending this type of claim.
But as long as we followed the definition of sex, meaning the Supreme Court definition, I'm just unclear how that could open us up to any kind of ability.
I guess I would say that how does your staff know that you're following that definition if it is not included in your policy? Because you as the board set the policy so that the staff knows what they are to do. So that would be the issue.
Could this open us up to problems with the Department of Agriculture as far as our nutrition program and being reimbursed if we're not adopting their language?
What I don't know, the step that I don't know is that are they requiring child nutrition departments or the state of North Carolina to certify that all school boards have included that language? And I can't tell from this. I would have to do a little bit of research to make sure, to see if that would present a problem, but
Can
potentially.
we come back to this next month after we've found out the answers to these questions on just this specific policy? Is that possible?
Would you like to pull your motion? Because there's a motion.
Can she answer if that's possible? Can we,
Yes,
are we allowed to?
we
come
can
back?
pull it
Correct.
as a board. That's not her decision, that's our decision.
Okay,
But
so-
you would have to get rid of your, we'd either have to not vote on the motion and you have to pull your motion back, and then we could do that.
Okay, so,
right?
but it's possible for us to not do anything with this particular
Absolutely.
policy? Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, then I will pull back my motion and I would ask.
And you're
that we would-
asking to pull this for next month to
Correct,
get
ask
some
that
more
we would look at this
clarification
again
and.
to have the answers. I think those are excellent questions. I would also love to hear the answers. I think that would help us make the best decision. So I would prefer to do that, please.
Are there any other comments or questions regarding
I
this?
do. My microphone's on. The USDA, first of all, helped us out a pretty good deal during COVID, providing grants for free meals for our students. They're including this language for a reason. There are footnotes with court cases against it. I mean, I agree with you, Alyssa. I don't think that they need to add all of this in because I know what's meant by that term. It's just, if they're including it, I'm sure there's some kind of legal reason. And if there's anything where an attorney can come back and say, why is it that your school board pulled childbirth from there? I just don't want to say, well, I don't know, we thought it was just all inclusive, you know, in the word sex. I think that if there's any other chance for USDA grants and we don't get them because we're not using their verbiage, I think it would be a big problem.
Yep. So when we do this, is there any objection to pulling this until next month from anybody here? Pull that one out. Let's talk about it again in April.
Yes, sir.
All right. That was your one policy. Mr. Bridges, do you have any?
No.
Mr. Egoff?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Caskey?
I just have one because another one was answered for me by someone else. 4240/7312, the child abuse and related threats to child safety.
Yes, ma'am.
So obviously, all of us in the education field, and probably everyone at this table knows what a mandated reporter is. And we know that we're, as a school board, mandated reporters as well. So if we're in a school and we're visiting and we see something, obviously we would have to report it, right? I mean, we fall under the same auspices. Does this extend to seeing a video of child abuse and having to report it?
Yes, ma'am. If we have any concerns for the safety of one of our students, then we're obligated to report that concern.
Okay, question answered. Thank you.
Dr. Evans?
I just want a clarification on policy 2120, Code of Ethics for school board members. If we could talk about what that new language is. And
Yeah, could you explain that, Lawyer Ease, on that one?
As I understand it, the School Board Association there was just saying that there are other policies where it talks about the conduct of school board members, school folks, staff to be professional, to maintain civility, just general language in other board policies that they were recommending, this is not required, that this added language would clarify that board members are required to meet the same expectations that your staff are with regard to general expectations. Is that fair, Mr. Taylor? You agree?
Yes, ma'am.
That is without having to specifically address that. For example, you have policy 7300 that I think addresses staff expectations. Obviously, some of those would not apply to board members. You don't have to show up at work on time. But it does talk about, you know, general language about maintaining high ethical standards, maintaining professionalism, civility, those kinds of things that they're just saying these things are going to apply across the board. Now, I say that there may have been something specifically that led the School Board Association to change this language, and I am not aware of what that is, and
Okay.
it's not reflected in anything. That is the way that I have read this change.
And I still have to draw attention to item A1. That still gives me heartburn that this board failed to comply. I mean, we're either gonna put it in there or not, and we're gonna comply with it or not.
Touche. Mr. Egoff, you had a question? About this policy? Yeah.
Not about this policy, no.
Okay. Are you okay with that, Dr. Revis? Or any other further explanation on that particular 2120?
I'm okay with the explanation. I'm okay with the policy. And, you know, I just think we all need to read this as board members and make sure that we are going to comply with our code of ethics. Comply with what we say we're going to comply with in our decisions.
Duly noted. Mr. Goff?
Yeah, just a quick one. On 2123, it's highlighted the Consortium of State School Boards Associations, and what's deleted is the National School Boards Association. And there was a little research done, but apparently North Carolina is one of 22 states that has withdrawn from the National School Boards Association.
You remember all that drama? Okay.
So this is mainly just a comment, maybe not a question.
Okay.
But, and now we are a member of the Consortium of State School Boards Associations, and there are 22 other states that are a member of this consortium. And when I first read this, I was like, wait a minute, what happened? But now I do remember, and that was just my comment.
Now, we are not on the Consortium of State School Board. The North Carolina School Boards Association is a part of that group.
Right.
And I guess that would mean us by default, right?
Right.
As a member of NCSBA.
Right.
And as far as education, that is one of many places we can receive our education. So,
The ethics trainings and
Yes.
all that jazz.
yes,
Okay.
that's all. Just a comment.
Ms. Dale?
Thank you. If I may, I've got several.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so policy 4700 on page 2, just the verbiage has changed. Deleted has been the family policy compliance, and replacing that is student privacy policy. Could you just elaborate on that?
Yeah. So the note that I have hidden here is that is the updated name of that office, and that is what has led to that change in the policy.
Okay.
And so that the office has changed from that family policy compliance office to student privacy policy office.
Okay.
Does it still include the family?
Yes. Well, I'll let you answer.
Again,
I don't think it changes the nature of what that does. That was just a change in the name of the agency. They issue a lot of directives about student records, FERPA, and it doesn't limit the ability of anyone, as far as I know, to file a concern, a complaint, ask a question. You ask questions. The law that they are enforcing is the Family Education Rights to Privacy Act, and that has not changed. That is federal law that's been on the books since 1970, 1972, somewhere in there.
And so it doesn't infringe upon parental rights at all, just making that clear. Okay.
Name of the office at the federal level.
Okay, very good. Okay, so I would like to pull 3 if possible, and just give us just a little bit more time to just do a little more research. Policy number 3220, did we agree to pull that one?
No.
Not yet. Based on the deleted sentence on page 1, second paragraph, and the added sentence. If we can pull that.
Okay.
What are we pulling it for?
That again?
We are pulling it because I'd like to do a little more research on this policy as a whole, but also what has been deleted. The deleted sentence is, such technologies will also be used to support programs and activities that promote safe schools and healthy healthy and responsible students. And then the replaced sentence is to prepare students to be successful in college and careers as a globally engaged, productive citizen. The verbiage there, productive citizen and as a globally engaged, productive citizen. I'm a little confused over that. And why the other was deleted.
Ms. Lopez, do you have any explanation down there as to why that was deleted?
I mean, I'd have to take a look at that and take a look at the footnote for why the School Board Association changed that. So, which I'm glad
This
that-
might bring up, what if we were to add the deleted sentence after the changed sentence? Add the deleted sentence after the newly added sentence and had both sentences. What would that do to us?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for you.
No, I know. It wasn't necessarily.
Just rhetorical.
Can we pull it?
Yeah, I just don't know what we're pulling it for.
We're pulling it to do a little more research on that. I would like
A research on,
on that sentence being omitted and that new sentence being added.
sure, pull it.
Okay, thank you.
And just to be clear, so that is the sentence, you're talking about the second paragraph? Is
Yes.
that the second? Okay. Just so when I look at it, I can make sure I'm looking at the right thing. Okay.
I just want to know the root of that verbiage.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all. I would like to pull item or policy number 2123, please. I too have done some research on COSSBA, and I'm just a little concerned about I know they say they're nonpartisan. What I've researched is that they are not so nonpartisan. I'm not too awfully encouraged about one of their guest speakers at a March event in Atlanta, who is a member of the United Nations, the Global Happiness Council. So I would like to pull that and do a little more research, even though Jay says that they are a conservative group that, well, let me just say that you have done research, and it's not a conservative group, it's nonpartisan. It's nonpartisan.
I just said they were a group that replaced the National School Board Association that North Carolina is a member of, but I do not know that they are conservative.
No, they're nonpartisan.
What I need
I
to,
don't know if they're nonpartisan. Go ahead, Blair, sorry.
I feel like we're losing the point of these policies, right? Like, so you need more research than the week that you've had to,
I got this on Saturday.
on Saturday?
We got the policies and we got the update, apparently.
Well, the update was just putting our name on the bottom, was all it was. To do more research to see if we want to be able to potentially use the training of the consortium, because it's not saying that we have to do
Okay, well,
anything.
let me ask this. I can vote on it now,
You sure?
quite frankly.
Yeah.
I can vote on it now.
Absolutely.
My question is, does North Carolina already pay to be enrolled in this?
What do you mean, North Carolina?
I'm asking, is North Carolina a part of the COSSBA?
You mean the North Carolina School Boards Association? Yes.
Okay. So would we be paying?
Well, we pay the North
as
Carolina,
Henderson County?
we pay the North Carolina School Boards Association, but if we wanted the consortiums or COSBA's training, then yes, we would pay them for that training, or we could pay the School of Government at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill.
Which we
or
already do.
Or DPI, or the School Boards Association, which we do.
Campbell Chapel.
Or we hire our attorneys, mainly is the only people that we hire for any of our ethics trainings when we do new board member trainings. Sure, we could. I'm just trying to figure out what what another month is gonna do.
Probably nothing to me.
Well, then why are we doing it
But
then?
well, it might
Well,
give
let's
others
not
a-
grandstand, let's vote for it. If you don't want it, don't vote for it.
Okay.
It's that simple.
Fair enough.
And if I might, you are not endorsing this organization in any way by adopting this policy. All it's saying is this is one of the organizations by which school board members can get their required training.
But by voting for it, I'm also voting to fund it.
That has nothing to do with this policy. That has to do with your membership with the North Carolina School Board Association. adopting the policy does not change that. Okay.
What number is this?
The policy just recognizes that's one of the entities you can use for your 12 hours that's required every 2 years.
All right, so this is 21-23. I'm not pulling it, but we will vote on it separately. All right. Do you have another one, Ms. Dale? Just those two? Okay. All right. So we have to recap, unless anybody else has anything else. All right. We've pulled 3220 to do a little bit more research. We've pulled 6220 to do a little bit more research on that language that's in there and make sure that Department of Ag, and you've got some homework on that, Ms. Lopez.
And for clarity, you want those in April?
Yeah, bring them in April. All right, so we've pulled number 19 and number 4. Let's go ahead and vote on policy 2123, which is board member opportunities for development. Separately, I'll make the motion. I'll move that Henderson County Board of Public Education approve policy 2123, board opportunities for development as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
We'll go by voice vote. Is there any more discussion on this policy?
I'm not clear what we're voting on.
We're just voting for the policy as it was shown.
Policies 1 through 20.
No. Right now, we're just voting on 2123.
We're just pulling that one on separately.
That's it, just for 2123. That was the one we were just talking about.
Number 2 on your list.
All right, yes or no, Ms. Norman?
Yes.
Yes or no, Mr. Bridges?
Yes.
Yes or no, Mr. Egoff? Yes, sir. I'm a yes.
Yes.
Ms. Caskey, Dr. Revis?
Yes.
No.
All right, 6-1, it passes. All right, let's knock that one off the list. So 3's gone, 4's gone, 19's gone. All right, now, if it's okay with everyone to make this a little bit quicker so we don't have to go through that process each and every time, we are now voting on policies 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, and 22. We've pulled 19, we've pulled 4, and we just voted on 3. Does that make sense to everyone? All right. I will take a motion to approve those policies as presented.
I will make a motion to approve the policies that Mr. Craven just mentioned with the ones that were pulled out for approval.
Perfect. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Boom, done. Thank you, sir. All right. Mr. Grant Atkins, are you actually going to come talk to us? Sweet.
He is.
Welcome, sir. We don't usually get to have the privilege of having you up here. I know. Not today. Put the camera right on him, Matthew.
All right, so what I'm coming to talk about today is we get funding through E-rate, which helps fund our network. So those are 5-year pots. It's federal money. But to get that money, we have to be very strategic on following the rules that they have in place. One of those, or the biggest rule of that, is being SIPA compliant. So the reason I'm coming here today is just to review our SIPA compliance and internet safety policy at a public meeting, just to see if there's anything that needs to be adjusted, and then that way we can have it on the books. The SIPA compliance, so that's basically the Children's Internet Protection Act. So SIPA specifically says we have to have an internet safety policy locally that covers a list of a couple of specific things. So just to give an idea, switch to this first slide. So E-rate is important because in this last cycle, we've gotten $2.2 million to help make sure we have a robust network. So that's over 5 years, but it's just enough money to kind of keep us up to date with the network and just make sure we can keep going. Whenever I came through the system here, the network was very different than what we have now. I mean, there was certain computers that could access it, but it was not widespread like it is now. I just spoke with my network engineer, and on an average day, we have 38,000 devices connected to the network, whether that's devices we own, guest devices, cell phones, guest speakers, things coming in like that. So 38,000 is an average day, so it takes a lot to keep that running. So as we roll through here, what's required from SIPA that we have to have in a local policy would be that we restrict access by minors to inappropriate content. that we have safety and security measures in place for minors when they're using email or chat rooms. We prevent unauthorized access, so that might be hacking or unauthorized access as far as into some of our elevated systems that control information for the district. Unauthorized disclosure of information about minors, and then measures restricting those minors to access harmful materials. So we are required to follow SIPA because we received that money. So we have to roll that into an internet safety policy. We adopted an internet safety policy in April of 2018. It didn't look like there's ever been a change to it since then. So this policy that we've adopted locally covers all those sub-items, and then as kind of a catch-all says comply with SIPA, just I'm assuming in case we can't make a change fast enough to, if there's a SIPA change. So that has all the same things listed in there. We're basically preventing users from accessing inappropriate material, preventing them from, sorry, switch over to my notes here real quick. Preventing unauthorized access, which they call hacking in a lot of these cases, preventing unlawful online activity, preventing online disclosure of personal information of minors, and then, as the catch-all, comply with SIPA. So some of the ways that we do that are having an internet filter. So we use a company called Securely. They're a SIPA compliant company that filters our internet connection. So we have our internet connection here. It goes through Securely, and they filter just to make sure that no inappropriate content's coming through to students or staff members. Students or employees must also notify us that content that is inappropriate needs to be blocked. We have a mechanism for that, so if a school staff member finds something that's inappropriate, there's a block and unblock mechanism to get that information to us, and then we can kind of quickly take action on that. I've got it separately, it's separate in that last paragraph, but if they need something unblocked that's been blocked inappropriately, we have a mechanism for that as well. So sometimes it'll be too strict, it's blocking something they really need to get access to, so we have a method for that as well. Section D is really just a section that's talking about unauthorized access, and this is going back to hacking. So just making sure we have systems in place to make sure they can't gain access to systems that they're not supposed to, or get around content filters or things of that nature. And then the last section is about education, supervision, and monitoring. So some of the ways that we do this are we have a yearly staff required training for internet safety they do online. Students at certain grade points, I'm gonna skip over so I can show it on here. Students at kindergarten, 1st, 3rd, 6th, and 9th do internet safety training online. Those are separated out where it's age appropriate content, because like a 9th grader's content is way different than a kindergarten or a 1st grader. We provide the unblock block request system just to make sure staff can notify us if they need a change in one way or the other with a website resource. And then we conduct phishing emails. This is closer to a security thing, but it's still an internet safety thing where we conduct random phishing emails that go out, trying to test staff to make sure that they're aware of scams that can go on online. And then if they do happen to fall in one of those, we can give them some like short remedial training on how to look out for that. As I see some of those come through, sometimes I'll send out examples of like real life things that happen, but we do random tests as well. So,
may I ask a question?
Yeah.
So the age appropriate content that's delivered, who delivers that? Regular classroom teachers, or is it a media specialist, or?
At the beginning of the year for the kids in those grades, it's set up in a way where the teacher can deliver it, and then the kids just log into the system to attest that they've received it, so we have all the recorded information in there. For kids that come, depending on their age, that come later in the year with one-offs, it can provide the content to them, or if a teacher wants to give it to them, they can do it either way, but we have the option in there, especially as they come through the middle of the year, that if they're old enough to go through it themselves, they can. Any other questions? So again, once again, we're just reviewing what we do for an internet safety policy just to make sure we comply with SIPA just because of that E-rate funding.
Is E-rate going to make us do, so before we just attested to this, right? So E-rate's now requiring that you present this in a public meeting, or someone presents it in a public meeting.
The reason this came about is as E-rate started to talk and look and really go into districts with all the federal money that's going around right now.
Yeah.
They asked us to look through this list and make sure we've done these things. So we, I guess, should have done this when we did it in 2018, and we didn't.
Okay.
So now I'm just refreshing that. Nothing about the policy has changed as far as our internet safety policy, but we just wanted to make sure that we were on the up and
On
up.
compliance and
Yep.
get cheaper internet.
Yeah, our state representative, who is not an auditor, but just they help us double check through things. And there's a lot of districts that are in this boat. We're not an outlier, but they just want to make sure we had checked the box for this kind of thing.
Cool. Questions, comments, concerns? Ms. Dale? Nope. Great job.
Thank you.
First time.
Thank you, Grant.
Knocked it out of the box. Mr. Taylor, you want to see us again? Come on up for the capital update. You get all the fun stuff. Ooh.
All right, so for this month's capital update, again, going to start with a couple of our projects that are being taken care of in-house with Henderson County Public School funds. So the first one is the Glen Marlowe School Zone lights. And so at last month's meeting, I told you we were halfway there. We had the lights working coming from 25, but unfortunately the 280 side at that time was not working. I'm pleased to tell you that both sides are now fully operational. So a big win there for the Glen Marlowe community. As I know, that has been an ongoing concern for families there, as well as the school. And so to have those lights working on both sides, again, it's just a big win. And so greatly appreciate this board's support in getting those during this fiscal year. The second project are the baseball and softball lights at North Henderson High School. Those lights, the poles and the lights themselves and the wiring have been installed by Camp Electric, so that work is complete. We are now waiting on Duke Energy to come in and do their parts. So a couple of things that they have to do on their end. I learned today that there's some right-of-way work that they'll need to complete to be able to come in and do their part, as well as installing the transformer. And so we are hopeful that that work can be completed this month. And so I'll have an update for you at the next board meeting on what the status is for that project. Here are just a couple of pictures. As I was out there a little over a week ago, they had everything trenched out where they had run the wires, all the poles were up. Good news is I know Mr. Craven had asked a couple of times about rock. That was a part of the contingency for this project, but we were fortunate that all that work was completed without hitting any significant rock, which is always a plus. All right, moving on to a couple of our MRTS projects again. With West Henderson, this is a county-run project through the MRTS funds. Previously, the architect had been selected, that is LS3P, but since we last met, the commissioners at their mid-February meeting approved Carolina Specialties as the construction manager at risk for this project. As a matter of fact, Mr. Garrett, Martin Ballard, and myself will be meeting with county officials and Carolina Specialties officials tomorrow to begin some initial conversations on that end for this project. At our last meeting, Mr. Egoff had just made a comment that it would be helpful to visually be able to see what is being discussed as part of this project. So here's an overhead view of the campus. And so that blue star represents the current main entrance for this school. And again, that is the primary focus of this project, is to create a secure entry that matches the double point access that all of our other schools have. So the red star represents where that new main entrance will be extended out. So where you see that current sidewalk coming from the building and the current sidewalk going up to that commons area, the cafeteria and the gymnasium, that is where that new building will be built, is in that area to create a new true front entrance that meets our secure entry. Also, what's being discussed as part of this project are the two yellow stars. Those are open areas into the courtyard, and so we're going to talk with the architects, with Carolina Specialties as well, about what can we do to potentially enclose that as well, so that we have a fully enclosed campus for the students and staff at West Henderson. Here's just an initial sketch of what that front office area could look like. Again, the blue star represents the current entrance into the building and to the office area. And so that'll kind of come to the end of the building and create really a 45-degree true front entrance. So you'll have those double entry doors that let you into kind of an open area. And then at that point in time, you'd have to get buzzed into the lobby that is off to the right. And that gets you into the front office area.
So Carl, will they be moving the, where the buses park? Because that's really right over there and.
We'll have to look into, you know, at that point, what does that then create? Right now, that is, as you've mentioned, that is the bus parking area. And so once that becomes the true front entrance, will we need to adjust where they park or where they drop off? Potentially, but those will all be parts of the conversation with this project. Also coming off of that entrance area, again, that is an open area into the courtyard, so that will be enclosed as well. But back behind that new lobby area and that entrance, that is all open area. So it'll still be an open space for students during lunch and as they transition, but again, will be enclosed to where people just can't walk into that courtyard and create a safety concern for us. All right, moving on to Upward, a couple of new dates that I have for you in terms of this project. Later this week, we will have a meeting out there for the Construction Manager at Risk pre-proposal meeting. So that'll be an opportunity for any contractors that are interested in this project to see the project, to learn a little bit more about it as they potentially put together proposals to present to our county. Those proposals are due March 15th, and then from there again, the selection process will begin, and the commissioners then will be presented with someone at one of their future meetings to make a decision on that as well. Also, just to give you a little bit of overhead perspective, again, what this project currently entails, the green star represents the current main entrance into the building. So when guests, visitors, parents arrive on that campus, that is the door that they get buzzed into. What we're looking at is flipping it to the other side where you see that yellow star. That is where there will be, again, that double point entry into the building where people can enter, but they have to get buzzed to be able to enter into the office area. And then from there, then they can access the rest of the building. Also, what is being discussed as part of this project is a cafeteria expansion. Again, their cafeteria is relatively small, so we're looking at that open area that is marked by the red star. That is where the cafeteria will expand out into that open space. All right, so this time I'll take any questions that you may have. You're welcome.
Mr. Sosha. Return financial statements.
I'm just going to stay right here. This is really quick, only one. Local current expense as of February 28th for this year. Our revenues now total $26.5 million, and our expenditures are just a little bit above $21 million. As we're tracking through our expenditures, it's 2/3 of the year into our fiscal year. We're at 60% of the budget. Which is where we want to be because May is always a big month with a local supplement that hits. That's why we are behind what you would normally think of an equal amount every month. And as we project out the rest of the year, we're within 1% of our total projected expenditure budget for the year.
What's our May supplement check that you cut? Approximately.
We would spend $3 million.
Just on the supplement?
Just on the supplement.
All right, any questions on this financial statement? Just a little update. Thank you, Mr. Sosha.
Thank you.
All right. You good? Okay. Mr. Garrett, General Operations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. It's my pleasure to share this month's General Operations Report. Berkeley Mills Property Exchange update. Wanted to let you know that I hand-delivered your resolution to County Manager John Mitchell last month. They are scheduled to have it on their agenda at their mid-monthly meeting for the Board of Commissioners in March. So they will take that up at that meeting, at which case then you'll know what you're facing there as far as that resolution and moving forward on that exchange. March, several things we want to recognize for March. So we have our National Social Worker Month this week, or this month, and specifically this week, celebrating those folks who work on the front lines there with our kids. This is Arts in Schools Month, and each of the fine arts has kind of a different tinge on the national piece, so we just count it as Art in Schools Month, and certainly know how valuable those are to not only the academic experience, but just the overall student experience that we offer in Henderson County Public Schools. As a matter of fact, later on in the month, at the end of the month, we got the Berrien Orchestra once again for their spring concert. So excited about that. Yep. It's Public in April, the 17th through the 21st, getting a little head start, is Public School Volunteers Week. We're seeing more volunteers in and out of our schools now coming off of the pandemic, which we're very excited about. And it is also National Nutrition Month. So really kudos to our school nutrition professionals and their leadership, but also to you as a board for moving forward with offering breakfast at no cost to all of our kids, regardless of age and all of those things. A grade level, doesn't matter. You come in, you want to eat breakfast, you get to eat breakfast. I don't get to eat breakfast. I would like to eat breakfast, but certainly glad to feed our students. So certainly want to celebrate all of those things. Kindergarten registration to date, 475 or so kids have already registered, and that is quite a handful. And we have those rallies that are coming up, and I agree, Dr. Revis, having them at the individual sites is exciting for me because they get to know their community. That's their school, and they get to go to their school, which is always fun. The hard part about doing those rallies is the parents bring them, and the next day they're like, why don't I get to go to school today? So the 5-year-olds are ready to roll. If only we could stay that excited all the way through life. So our kindergarten rallies, as you see, we've had March 2nd, we had the Bear Kitten Basic Training, and then Dane Elementary, Wildcat Welcome, and then Clear Creek, Kinder Cub Kickoff. Now these, you can understand, these are elementary people that have come up with this. These are not secondary folks, I guarantee it. Edneyville is Huddle at the Hive, and Atkinson is Cougar Countdown, Etowah Rising Stars Rally, Hendersonville Cubcat Readiness Rally, Sugarloaf is Roar Academy, Upward is Eagles Flight Training, Mills River is First Flight, Glenn C. Marlowe is Mustang Readiness Roundup, Hillendale Husky Pup Academy, and Fletcher Fox Cub Corral. So certainly you see those dates on there. If you have a chance to go by and say hello, I would say it's hard to find a parking spot on those kindergarten rally nights. I have tried to go to some in the past, and you just can't find a place to park. So as you see there, the other things, again, March 5th through 11th this week is School Social Worker Week, and certainly those are valuable folks as we address those issues that we know our students face, and also on the proactive side to work with our students as well. Kind of a big deal for a lot of folks, spring break, March 13th through the 17th for all students and staff, and certainly hope everyone has a real safe and enjoyable spring break. They've kind of backed off the snow forecast for next week, so maybe there'll be some sunshine. And then April 5th, you'll have your school tours, and we will be visiting the innovative high schools, Hillendale Elementary and Clear Creek. Your regular meeting for April is back to the normal second Monday, April the 10th. And then April the 12th will be your budget workshop. And we have 0 from the state at this point, and I hope to have something from the state at that point. But we will press forward, at least with some capital things, if we don't know anything else. And that'll be at 9 a.m. here as well. So that is what I wanted to share, and certainly hope everybody, again, has a great spring break next week.
Awesome. That, anything else? Good deal. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
For a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're out of here.